between with in-depth interviews from your favorite sports icons. Check out the bench meeting hosted by Kenneth Bob on Sundays from 4 to 5 p.m. only on Win Media SKN.
Good afternoon and welcome to the bench meeting. My name is Kenneth Bob, as you would have heard, and I am joined again by Mr. Don Grant, currently Vice President of the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association. I want to say a warm welcome to all listeners. I also want to let everyone know that we're going into a little bit of lockdown, so try and be safe as possible. Try and avoid contact where possible and follow all the necessary protocols. And for persons who are so inclined, don't wait too long to go and get your vaccine. These are all measures that can be used to curb the spread. Unfortunately, that seems to be ravaging our small twin isle of more so St. Kitts and Nevis. Nonetheless, I'm here not to report on bad news or to dwell too long on it. And I wanted to continue our conversation as promised from last week with Mr. Don Grant about his upcoming bid for the presidency of the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association. Before that, I just wanted to touch on the other pieces of sports that's been going on that affects us around the region and the world. First of all, West Indies, congratulations. We found our format. We're looking fine, Nick, to defend our T20 World Cup despite all the predictors saying otherwise. Then on top of that, Patriots have a bit more to be happy about because the main protagonists in yesterday's victory, West Indies over South Africa, were Evan Lewis, Chris Gayle, and Fabian Allen, above all people, among the others. But it was definitely a team effort. Excellent captaincy again by Kieron Pollard. He's one of the few captains I've seen from the West Indies in a while that once he's there, there's a certain level of confidence that the team will perform at its highest. I don't think he suffers any, based on his captaincy style, he doesn't suffer any fools. And we are seeing the results of him in the shorter formats of the game. Hopefully they can start taking it. Although West Indians since the days of Viv Richardson, they really haven't been excited with the longer formats of the game, even though they have been showing progress recently. But nonetheless, this is something to rejoice about. And then they're currently in the middle of the second match. They're chasing 166 for 7, having dismissed South Africa, bowled out the 20 overs, I should say, not dismissed them. And currently 7 without loss, probably more because the screen obviously updates a little later than games, with Evan again striking. So let's see how this one goes. Hopefully it goes in the same direction as it did yesterday. I think West Indies tend to enjoy chasing more so than anything else. So the fact that they were able to get the toss today and send South Africa in and give them and South Africa only posting a total that marginally beats what they had up yesterday, and the way in which they dispatched South Africa yesterday, I should see very little issues in us overcoming this total today. The Euros, the semi-finals, they are going on, and we have some results because the Netherlands, my longtime favorite European team, took a dive, fell today to the Czech Republic, and currently the other big matchup right now in the round of 16 is Portugal versus Belgium, and Belgium has a 1-0 lead. Denmark would have progressed yesterday with a trouncing of Wales, forcing Gareth Bale to walk off the screen after they started asking him some hard questions. And Italy would have also progressed at the expense of Austria, who did put up a good fight. But Italy have found a level of stability that seems to be leading them in the right direction as it relates to winning this Euros. Tomorrow and the next few days, we'll be having England versus Germany. And that's another exciting matchup that a lot of persons are looking forward to. Currently in Copa America, the quick update is that Argentina is leading Group A with Paraguay in second. I think that's perhaps the surprise there. Argentina on 7 points, having only played 3 games. I believe it's 4 games that will be played in the group, and the top 2 teams will be going around. Top 2 teams will be going on into the next round. Brazil and Colombia. But Colombia is actually level on points with Peru, having played 1 more game than them in Group B. Brazil leading clearly with 3 games, 3 wins on top, and 9 points of Group E. So, yeah, that's a brief run through. There's still some NBA to discuss, but I don't have time for that today. I want to just move on directly into our interview because I thought it was something that we needed to spend a bit more time on. I wanted to unpick a few more things, and I wanted to ask some of the hard questions that some persons who may be observing or intent on getting involved may want to ask, and therefore offer Mr. Grant the opportunity to respond accordingly. So Don, where we cut off last week, welcome again. Thanks for being here. Where we cut off last week was you were in the middle of the first division and some of the ideas that you had in mind for the first division. So what I wanted to do, because I want to get through the ideas that you have in mind for first division. I also want to hear a bit more about the female. I want to hear a bit more about the men's senior team and the Premier League, maybe. And each one of those, are some very, very extensive pieces of discussion. But I don't want to get away as well into the discussion and not get a chance to ask you some of the questions that would probably be asked and running through the minds of persons, even if they don't necessarily have the courage to ask, and maybe offer you the opportunity to represent some clarity on your behalf and the behalf of your team. So what I could suggest is that I'll try and nudge you when it comes to the time as you break down the first division, female, and Premier Division plans as part of your prospectus. And then around the 4:30 mark, we will start to ask some questions about, based on that, as well as I said, some that are out there.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Good afternoon to the viewers. Good afternoon to the Federation. I know that we're going into a lockdown based on the present climate of the COVID-19. I just hope that we'll all stay safe. Wishing all of us that we'll get to that place in the next 2 weeks. Making St. Kitts and Nevis one of the places that we could go out freely without fear, and that the apparatus that government have in place will help to make us safe, as well as with the people adhering to the protocols that will keep us safe.
That's a very big part of it, yes.
Yes, I know clubs are waiting, and just today someone asked me when I think that we're going to start football again. I don't think that's the Football Association call as it is. It's more the government and the task force, because they're charged with keeping us safe. We might want to play the game, but at the end of the day, it's better to be safe than sorry and have football playing, persons get sick, and at the end of the day, Football Association is held liable for, you guys could have waited. It's better for us to wait until they give the all clear. How it looks, our league seemed to be extended, but who knows? Last year, we had a ball with the Super Six and others after a long wait. I'm sure that we'll be able to entertain all levels of the football whenever we're back out on those fields. As you said, Bob, I left off where we were talking about the first division, and I want to just put in this spin because when I became an executive member 12 years ago, it was from Sadler's Sports Club. Sadler's Sports Club were just getting back the feeling into football because they were dormant for a while. I always remember, and that is one of the things that drove me and still keep me going today. When I was asked and told by someone, even though you're an executive member, you don't have a team in the Premier League, so you shouldn't speak. That for me resonated with me for 12 years because I realized then that we had to make sure we mind persons, whether they work in football or not in our own football, that we all represent the clubs. We represent 20, how many other clubs, and all of them should be treated equal. Mind, treating them equal doesn't limit the growth of those bigger clubs. But if we give the same to all the clubs, to empower them for the beginning, that will also enable all of them to grow. Now, when I speak about the first division, I remember playing football. We had second division, we had first division. This second division, just like the first division, used to say, nobody take us on. One referee. Those days we used to have the team putting a linesman up, and sometimes the referee have to play the game just himself. We have come way past that, and we have more or less made the referees a part of the system. Mm-hmm. They're better trained, better advanced in whatever way, in every way, with every single innovation that FIFA comes up. So therefore, the first division is no longer held out there like that. All clubs though in the first division, persons will see, and I've seen a lot of people posting lately, oh, well, this club doesn't show up for a game. Sad as it may be, some clubs have some handicaps, and even before the COVID, we would have realized that. One of the things that we would have had to do, and I had to deal with clubs where you couldn't pick clubs in some areas. For example, and I won't name names or clubs, but some clubs you couldn't play in that village because of the perceived gang or related issues that would happen around the areas.
I actually remember those concerns.
And for one reason, the Football Association and the competition committee, which I chaired, we made sure that we were about saving lives and protecting limbs. So we had to do that. Now, fast forward as it may, the first division clubs will always tell you they feel second class. They feel like nobody is studying them. Nobody come to their games. The lights that they play on, not the best. I know that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis can't afford to put the same lights like in the park and all the grounds. But what we try to do is play the games in the best facilities with the better lights, even though it's almost the same thing. And what we have started over the past few months since the COVID, and that I've realized something for us, that playing the first division in predetermined and planned areas make the systems work around it better, almost similar to what the Premier Division have. Because we have started to have GCs or MCs, venue coordinators, organizing the matches in collaboration with the referees. The game is still the referees, but when you do it like that, you're able to stream the games, one of the game at least. They're better prepared, the grounds where they are, it's safer for them. And there are so many things that we have been able to realize with this COVID, which is what we need to continue. Now,
I don't want you to go on too long because remember we still have you are way to, okay, let me put it this way. Merge that into how you're transitioning that into the Premier League now. That's the best way.
Okay, that's a good point to start with. Most of the clubs also in the first division will tell you, Don, our Football Association, whenever we get to the Premier League, we're going to fix our systems. We started the club licensing program where the clubs and their structure need to be penetrated and fixed. Some are still not there.
Can I ask a bit of a question? Because I saw that.
Go ahead.
I saw that program a few times being advertised, and I even think I attended one of the first ones. There's, I remember you see, a lot of these types programs you may not have within the auspices of the FA to really conduct these programs and manage these programs the way they are supposed to be managed for a number of different reasons. Maybe you don't have the necessary skill sets available to do the lecturing, but saying you have a program and letting it be effective and letting it work for the clubs are two very different things. Because many times I see what should be done on paper, for example, but the practicality is that this is how it goes on the ground. For example, we are encouraged as clubs to have accounts and audited accounts to be able to show, for our disbursements and this kind of thing. But most persons, including yourself, would know that managing a football club, sometimes they don't have time, especially if you don't have somebody there with you as an accountant to really keep accurate record. So many times you're doing things for football, for the players, for the club, coming out of your own pocket, right? And then now, I don't want to go too far, and then now what happens is, if some subvention does come in, then if you take any of it at all for yourself, they say you're taking away the club money, right? When we both know that what you put in, probably double, triple times what you have tried to compensate yourself for in making a sacrifice on behalf of the club. And I'm making all of that point to say this. Because of those realities, we need to kind of angle these courses. Yes, we know what the expectations are from FIFA, but we also need to make those expectations realistic for local clubs in order for them to be able to meet the criteria. Because if you make it unrealistic, then you have a disparity. You always have the elite clubs who have the full setup in there and everything else, who have the resources to be able to apply and get, without any sort of question, support from FA or otherwise, because the machinery is there. And the ones like your home club, Sadler's, sometimes you know that you would probably get people appointed to positions, but then at the end of the day, sometimes it end up becoming one or two people who carry in the full load. You know what I mean? And to me, yes, I love them, and it's a lot, but it's a lot for one person to do. So how it is these things have to work. How it is you envision these things working in a practical sense. Premier League and First Division clubs.
But all of them are equal in that sense, because you need structures for both.
Yes.
For both. And let's do it this way. The Football Association is basically run by 10 executive members. President plus 9 other executive members. A general secretary is appointed. The Football Association members don't really have to have those 10 executive members. Right. The president, a first vice president, a secretary, a PRO, / treasurer, if any. And right. That is what we have to do, is to start with the bare minimum, because when you look at it, you're planning to grow those clubs at some point to a bigger executive where people can help. But you also have to realize, and you said it a while ago, we live in communities where the resources are limited.
Yeah.
And that is where I've always had that part of me that says, even though we have the club licensing rules that all clubs should adhere to, we also have to understand the systems in the federation. Not all the communities have the same resources. Therefore, it is the SKNFA's charge to facilitate and work with the executives in whatever measure. And that's the reason why I've said, and I keep saying, we have to equally give all the clubs. They will not get to that same point. But if you give them that starting input, you could work with them. You spoke about the bank accounts. most of our clubs today must have a bank account because we started the club assistance where we give X amount of dollars to the members. Just recently, we had a meeting with the clubs or Congress, and we proposed carrying the maximum amount that any club could get to $12,000. Now, each club could get up to $12,000, but because clubs are at the different levels in the Premier League, first team, the Premier team, your reserve team, females, youth, tree youths, grassroots, name it. Not all of those clubs will be able to do that. So what we have said, some persons were even frightened because some years ago, a club like Challengers, who were challenged with their first division team, they asked, hey, could we play in the reserve league? Yes, you can. Because as I said, and I continue to say, each club they will never be able to bill out like everybody else, because St. Kitts will not ever be an England. But we are a member of the Football Association of FIFA. And any club that is a part of the Football Association, we need to protect them, help them wherever, because we are there to build capacity and build capacity and facilitate where the clubs need. And that's one of the reasons why we have coaching clinics, because we need to empower the coaches as we go. If we want the product at the end of the day, because St. Kitts and Nevis as a federation, the SKNFA goal with its members is to build the clubs so that we get a better national or federal product. So we have to make sure all the parts, but you'll never get the same output of some clubs. Some clubs will only be able to do a first division team, a youth team, and maybe grassroots. What do? Shut them out to the association because they can't meet all the programs? No, you have to work with them because they might have the best grassroots at the end of the day. They might have the best youth teams at the end of the day. And it goes for all the teams, whether you're Premier or First Division, because we have to do the same thing to ensure that growth. Because at the end of the day, who benefits? The communities and the federation at the end of the day. And that's the reason why I said this. First Division, Premier Division, they are no different to me from the get-go. They will shine at different levels. And that's why some clubs are able to bring in sponsors, because they are prepared, well prepared, they shine more than the others. You know, because at the end of the day, they're able to attract, just like England with their EPL. It's not the FA that runs the EPL or the Premier League, but conglomerates come together and do that. Some persons would like to say, but I suppose we could get some persons to run the Premier League like that. That would be good for St. Kitts and Nevis. The Football Association will just have to make the policy and the rules. But as you said, for me, First Division and Premier Division are no different. They are members. We just have to make sure that level playing field is there, that they can grow. Some will have bigger mango trees. Some will have smaller mango trees that bear. But we must be able to give them the same fertilizer. All right? Okay. So that being said, First Division, we have come a long way. We are now introducing more monies for the championship. As I said, we discussed the criteria to go to the Premier League. Some persons school of thought the team that is winning the 2 rounds should be directly promoted. We have said that. We have 12 teams in the Premier League. We got that to that point because some persons were saying we need to give back more. The present president was saying, hey, we need to give back more. What we have started with all of the clubs. Once you take part and you're in the Premier League, once you're there, you must go away at the end of the tournament with something in your hands. Because
what about the pushback about diluting the quality of the competition?
You see, diluting the quality sometimes. Just today, someone said this to me. Some years ago, he had to tell his coach. His coach was coaching him in a top level, let's say a champion team, and his coach was saying, "We're going to play a lower team today in the Premier League. That's an easy team to beat." But guess what? The team lost. The team lost to the so-called easier team. Now, how do we deal with that situation as you just said it? Because the other side of it, I am from Saddlers. I am an executive member. I represent all the clubs, but I'm from Saddlers. Mm-hmm. And the Saddlers players will say to their secretary, and sometimes they openly say to me, "Don, you're giving us all hard game as soon as the Premier League starts." What's a hard game? What's a hard game? You understand? So the clubs and the players, most of the players need to start thinking, we could achieve, we could beat them on a given day.
Yeah, but
And that's
that being said, you could say that. But when you go out and you watch the performances of a day, for example, you know, versus even your same Saddlers, yes, it's a derby. You know what I mean? And conceding 8 goals, you know what I mean, 12 goals, then are you helping or are you hurting? You know,
okay.
In instances like that.
When do we start the cutoff point, or when do we start saying they have arrived? They've played for promotion.
Right, agreed.
So what do we say to them?
No, in the sense that, remember, I'm challenging it from the perspective of the 12-team competition versus the I think you had, it was eight.
Started at 8, went to 10, then we had about 12.
You know, at 12, yeah. I mean, was it necessary to add those 2 teams? You know, some pundits may argue that it sort of diluted the strength of the Premier League.
I would say that. I heard that. As a matter of fact, we have argued that with some clubs in the park. The park sit down and said that the club become up, they get in 13-0. And then two weeks after, that same team draw with a top team. So it's a give and take, and you have to expose, because at that end, in that losing of this weaker team and watering down, do you know what happens? You find players that can play in the national system. You find players, because even though the goal is to win, you're also trying to change the modus operandi of most of the clubs. And sometimes when they come to the Premier League, because I could go back to Saddlers, I could go back to Derby. I remember the days when they used to just come up and go back down. I also remember when Saddlers came up the last time, even though I'm an executive members, persons would make me and tell me, Saddlers just come up to get leaks to go back down. Saddlers is up there now for what? Almost 10 seasons. So you have to be careful the way you approach the system, because at the end of the day, when you say that, you're tearing down the product. What do is encourage each other to get better. The reason for coaches education, and one of the reasons why I've always said, when you train coaches to work with clubs, it's our obligation as the Football Association, the TD and the technical department, to go out to the clubs in their various environment and watch the clubs and the coaches that they've trained to see what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, one of our former TDs used to ask, what is the St. Kitts Nevis style of football? Mm-hmm. And therein, if we don't impart the knowledge to everybody and observe, we'll never get it. Then we'll get a lopsided system where most of the players coming from that side. And what do you do? And how will you be able to compete amongst your peers to develop? So while person says we're watering down,
I see what you're saying in terms of the level of exposure, but I don't see that helping. I don't see, for example, that level of exposure helping a team like the Police. You know what I mean? Unless they themselves. I've seen them get more organized, but realistically expecting them to remain after progressing up to the Premier League, for example, realistically expecting them to remain in the Premier League, you know what I mean, is you know, neither here nor there. Whilst for me,
I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you on that. I want to tell you this. I've always said, I trained in Trinidad in '97 as an air traffic controller. And one of the strongest teams in the Trinidad League was the security forces.
I know that.
I've always challenged the security forces and the police in our football league that you should be better.
Yeah.
You should be better. And I've seen glimpses of it. Because in the past 12 years, gone back, the security forces never traveled to the point to get to Premier League. So I've seen a change. And I think the approach have changed. The executive, John Bergen is one of the persons who was an executive member with me. He did some training as a coach, other persons, and they came up. I remember when they came up and a message was sent to some of the clubs, hey, we're coming up to beat up those clubs. But the reality when they get there is that they realize that they have to step it up a notch. And I know the league is now more or less done for now. I see them playing again with the intention we are coming back to Premier League and we're going to make it better.
But
so
that's my point, Don. I don't feel they would make it better. I look at the you see, part of it too is are you rewarding excellence or let me put it this way, are you rewarding effort or are you rewarding average? You understand what I'm saying? In the sense that I have no doubt that there are talented players within the squad. I know the squad pretty well, but do they represent at this point, or what I saw in terms of their display last season when they were involved, our highest level of football at any point in time when they played? No. I think most times when they played, we saw first division football.
Okay. That be as it may, let's say this. And that's the reason why we had people thinking that, hey, first division, Premier League, yes, they're different levels.
Yes, right, yeah.
Different tiers. But how do you reward those teams that are playing the best football in the first division? We had a situation before, and I'm going to quickly so we could move on, where the first team in the first division used to be automatically be advanced. Right. And the 9th team in the Premier League, let's do it the 11th team then, the 11th team will play off against the second team at one match to see if who will stay up or who will come up. The advantage always went to whom? The Premier League team.
Yeah.
And most of the clubs at the end, they say, no, that's unfair. We need our genuine chance. There's some clubs who, even when they come to the Premier, people say they don't belong to the Premier. They go back down to the first division, beat everybody, and come back up. So where do they belong?
All right. I don't want to be legally point because we have a lot more to discuss. But I understand what you're saying. I just sometimes get a little concerned when I see those lopsided victories and stuff.
And I understand it.
All right, so let me just touch on some of the pushback that has been out there. One of the first things persons have said is that you've been with the FA for quite some time. In fact, as far as I'm aware, you wear that with a badge of honor, as a badge of honor. You've been with the FA since the days of Mr. Jenkins, and there's one of the thinking in the landscape is why don't want to run for president again? Why is it you don't make way for somebody somebody younger, different?
Okay, let me answer this in this simple way. Mr. Jenkins was the one who exposed me to the upper echelons of what you call the Football Association executive. When he saw what I was doing in Saddlers, organizing the league, I practically was the secretary for the Saddlers football team for Saddlers Club for 19 years. And he invited me to share what was called in a position ex officio, with never an executive member, which was voted for then. When I became an executive member, Mr. Jenkins lost. Mr. Johnson was the one who invited me to serve with him because one of his candidates, Mr. Garfield Alexander, he was knocked off of the slate then. Now, what have happened to me? I came into football as the odd man out. And a person have always said that to me. I've been challenged at every level as I proceed through football. I'll go to the gate and someone will tell me, how you get to become an executive member? What did you do to reach that point? For persons after years to come back to me and say to me, Don, I now understand why you got here, because they understand what I did. And I was doing what I was doing at the executive level because I was always on the ground. I'm a hands-on person. Now, over the years, I've moved from what persons might say as the average Joe to the second vice president, now to the first vice president. Nothing is, it is not predestined that I will get the presidency. It's not like we're handing it over. But over the past few years, in me working with the clubs, that hand-on thing, a lot of the clubs have said to me, one of the clubs, I won't say the club, the president will say to me and always say to me, Don, I think you should have already run for the presidency of the Football Association and take it over. I've had calls from, and I won't call this person's name, to say, Don, why don't you run as the president in the last election? And I said, no. Mr. Johnson, as I've learned from him, he's doing well. He's a good teacher. He has been someone who's been challenging me to be a better person. Some person will say, you're too quick to jump on things. Yes, because sometimes when I see a fault or something happening, it's better for us to fix it rather for it to fess. So me, I'm running this time because one, clubs have shown me that, hey, what you're doing, we'd like to see you do it for everybody. And at the same time, I think I've learned from Mr. Johnson and other executive members that I've served with, his style will not be my style. But I must make sure that the legacy that Stanley Franks, Mr. Jenkins, and Johnson, the executive that they lead and the staff that they employ and the clubs is made better and carried to a different level. And my hands-on style with the persons that I've seen and interviewed, as a matter of fact, my candidates have more or less interviewed me. But I'm doing this out of the love of the game, the sacrifice that I've seen and made over the years. Somebody knew, at the end of the day, that's the club's call.
Okay. Now, I'm certain though that you are aware that as much as you were hands-on or you are hands-on up until this point, that role change would sort of forbid you from, because you're now as first vice president, you're local for the most part. You have a little regional, but you're local. As president now, you're local, you're regional, and you're international. That transition, and why you're asking the question in that way is because persons have, I mean, you no matter which organization, let's take this from up front. No matter which organization you are, once you're in leadership, you're going to get criticized. Somebody always has a better idea as to how you can do it. But the question will be asked then, okay, Don, you've been part of the Mr. Jenkins. We had problems with Mr. Jenkins. You've been part of the Mr. Johnson thing, and some of us have had challenges with Mr. Johnson and his team. What are you doing different now?
Let me just say quickly, are the challenges genuine or are they?
No, well, as I said, that's why I prefaced it with saying that there is no, I don't know of any organization head that does not get criticized incessantly. Leadership right now, in these times, especially as social media and otherwise, leadership right now is people, I can't even say a two-edged sword. It's just a sword. You know?
I'll start with this. Yeah. I remember when we had the situation with Connery, the Islands Auto Supplies Connery.
No, I know why you go there.
No, I'm saying this because I want to bring out something for you.
Okay.
The judge, Eddie Ventus, said something to me that I've put in the back of my head and I will lead with it and live with it for the rest of my life.
Right.
He was able to watch our constitution or statute and said, Mr. Grant, you guys need to fix those loopholes. Make your statutes or rules and regulations foolproof that the systems that you lead will be for the better. Some persons will say, hey, you guys don't need to do it like this. But we start the leagues and we run the football based on the rules and regulations of that time. Now, when somebody challenged me on stuff, I always quote the rules, but this is what the rule says. This is what the rule says. So people will see it like, but I think you should do it that way. But we're operating in this fashion now. Now, you said I won't be able to or shouldn't be able to, but being the leader of an outfit, and I said to you just a while ago.
I'm asking, I didn't say you, no, I have no, I'm just asking how you're going to do it.
Okay, and this is what I was getting to. Some of the persons I've interviewed and some of the persons I've reached out to be part of the executive. Sometimes when I sit down with them, we sit down for 1 and 2 and 3 hours, and I'm listening to the persons because I've observed the persons working in football. And these are persons who, when we finish, I smile to myself, and when I reach back to the persons who recommend them, I say, wow, we have leaders. I could start calling their names, but I won't, because most of the time as executives, and as we're going, you tend to keep your taking case there. So there are people, and some of them are executive members who are coming along with me also. You know, so I could step away and go to a meeting just like Johnson does, and we continue. Johnson will not be able to come to a meeting or have to step aside, and the first vice president take it up, which is me, and we continue. It's about continuation, because building capacity, which I'm all about. I'm at that point where I have to hand over, for example, the competition committee to someone else. I've had to hand over the referees committee, which I chaired, to someone else. And it was made for me and go to other person for the better. That way, the president, which I will be able to now sit at the executive level and hear the reports of the various committees which are there to govern the football. So I don't have to be hands-on like that anymore. But I also want to offer to the clubs of the federation an executive body that will be able to come around and visit you in your community to see what you are. That's the only way, because at the end of the day, we must be empowered and encouraged by what the reality of our clubs.
Agreed. One thing, or one change, if it is that you are going to try and make, because I've noted that you said you wanted to make some constitutional changes to the FA statutes and everything else to make it a lot more, not foolproof is the word, but yeah. There are no persons, clubs who try different things to get through loopholes. Loopholes was the word you used.
Yes,
I agree with that.
Yes,
I agree with that. I do think that there is a need to really step it up from the legislative perspective, because if you're going to argue as an organization that you're managing football and you're governing football in such a way that you do not want to require the need of the legal system, then your internal statutes have to be up to par, and the lines need to be clear so that persons who are operating within have that clarity. One thing I would like to urge on a personal level, though, is also as we look at how we go about the electing of members to the FA, the executive members. Why I say that? In my mind, we have gotten to a point where we start to work with slates for obvious reasons of making your job easier, in the sense that you team up with persons from other clubs and other communities to be able to assist, right? However, sometimes you may have good people who may be on the other slate. And unfortunately, what happens is, not like what happened with you and Mr. Johnson, where they were able to assimilate you and work with you, but you have a bit of a division where one side feels like they are in charge of everything and the other side feels disempowered. That's something I think can be addressed within the legislative, as well as how you manage as well too, but I think it does more damage to the entire FA, in the sense that you want to be able to get the best out of everybody. Let me put it that way.
And I agree with you. I totally agree with you. We had a club that I had to, I was empowered by the president and the executive with a few other executive members to deal with the situation. I call the club Newtown. I remember the election. One gentleman who wanted to run for the president, he said he had a slate. And if he wins the presidency and all of his slate doesn't win, he doesn't want to lead. And I said to him, that is not what football is about, because if you have a slate And when the club members vote, they give you diverse from both sides. That's where you have to test your mettle to work. I've been told, as I told before, and I'll call his name. Dongo Farrell was one of the persons who challenged me as an executive member because he was like, I used to do a lot. Why Jenkins them didn't invite me? He went around for years. He saw me. And I am running against Atiba Harris. Atiba Harris and persons will say to me, Don, why you and Atiba Harris don't get together and work together? Because you're basically writing and saying the same things.
Agreed.
I have no problem with working with Mr. Harris. I win, and I said to persons before, Atiba Harris, I will reach out to him and say, hey, I think you should be an ambassador for St. Kitts and Nevis for the sport to work with the Football Association. As a matter of fact, my phone today still have conversations between myself, Atiba Harris from 2017 up until 2019. The same Atiba Harris that is running against me invited me to his apartment in Monkey Hill, and I went and I met him, and we spoke. He was having some issues with the contractor, and we were able to share information.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that continues after. I don't want to beleaguer you too much with the.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because why I say that is, I am aware of your personality, and in terms of your ability to work, and your work itself speaks to that. So the relationship between you and Atiba, I think, will be good despite the election, in my personal opinion.
Yes, I have nothing against him, though.
My only question was persons who are part of either slate who may or may not have been as successful, how will we continue to incorporate them within our structure, especially if you know they're well-meaning. We don't want to lose them completely.
Look, the Football Association have various ad hoc committees. And yesterday I reached out to a friend, a cousin, and a colleague who I invited into football. He might be working with Atiba in some form or fashion, but that didn't stop me from taking up my phone to speak and have a conversation for at least an hour with him. One of the things I've said to persons, we have committees. You could come in and share and work on committees. As a matter of fact, persons will challenge me, and there have been this school of thought from some persons who are trying to make me look like a pariah, saying, don't vote for Don Grant because he's going to turn over the whole staff. There's no such truth to that. What I would like to do is to expand the staff with persons who are on the other side, because this gentleman that I spoke about a while ago, he will fit in the staff as a very good worker. And I know that for a fact. There are persons who have run against and persons who are here now. They're professional in their field. They might not be able to work per se, but they could volunteer and serve on a finance committee, competition committee. Because at the end of the day, the product does not belong to Don Grant and his executive. We are there to work with everyone. Don Grant as a person, I will go to, it doesn't matter where your club is from. I've always found ways to go to that person or club that people say, the Football Association don't like. And I won't start to call names, because what I see in people is that chance to shine, because they always have something to offer.
Okay.
And that's the reason why when you talk about the first division clubs, I sit back, because I think that's where we're being defeated to our own product.
No, let me ask you about this next. Let me put this next question to you then. The FA on the whole, not Don Grant, have a reputation of being very insular. When it comes to making appointments and stuff like that, it tends to be associates, friends, persons whom are, and it's not a problem that is faced by the FA. When you look at most organizations, unfortunately, it's the bane of our existence here in St. Kitts and Nevis and perhaps around the world, where, sometimes you will find square pegs in round holes in some instances, but we still try and squeeze them in there because they are, in one way or the other, we feel obligated for whatever reason. how are you going to combat that? Because that ties in almost exactly what you were just saying.
Okay, first and foremost, I think that we operate with a general secretary which is part-time. I have a full-time job, but we have a secretariat. We have a secretary. I could call her name Makeda Woods. I term her personally for over the years I've worked with her as the brains of the outfit. She have everything in her head, but she works as and I don't want to call her secretary because she is more than a secretary.
Yeah. Administrative assistant.
Administrative assistant. But we must be able in this day and age to have someone working with her. Yeah. Because there's so many things that she has to do. Now, on your point though, that we've been for want of a better word, I've always said that we are tardy with our communication. And when I say that, I say that to all of us. I include myself. Let me say this. A lot of the clubs, when they message or even players, and that's the reason why I have that outstretched hands to everybody. When there's an issue, if they send an email to the Football Association, they'll call and say, Don, this thing is in, maybe you guys haven't seen it. Could you check on it for me? And that's one of the things, because even when we had the situation with Conway, it was like that. We were with the General Secretary, as I say, he's part-time. Sometimes you have to nudge him for stuff. And for me, I would like to have a full-time General Secretary and maybe an assistant secretary, General Secretary, because the Football Association as a body, we are bigger than just a club now. We are local, international, we're local, regional, and international. Yes. So we must be able to have real-time interaction with our members, the population on a whole, and our business partners. Because even with FIFA, we can do things. FIFA is not you take a phone and call, FIFA, I need X amount of dollars tomorrow. No, you have to build out that plan and reach out to them. And there are times, because when we have something to do, the national team is supposed to travel, and there's so many things that we have to do with FIFA money. We're waiting for FIFA money to come in. The General Secretary and the executive have to maybe borrow some funds, but it's paid back at the end of the day. It's all about how we communicate. And I started writing proposals or document for football on my own without even thinking about running, because what I was doing in my mind's eye, I was fixing the loopholes or problems that I've seen. And you just said it. And I've said to myself and to the persons I speak with, we must be real time with information. As a matter of fact, one of the executive members that I've asked, and he's willing to return, he works in one of our biggest companies in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I've said to him, you have to fix our website that it is friendly, real time, no matter what we do. Now, I might have to travel, the executives might have to travel, but the Football Association as a body, the secretariat, must be able to function and understand that we serve people. We're not there unto ourselves. We serve the clubs. And with that said before I move on, I would like to say to people and to the clubs, we, as the body of the Football Association that I will lead, one of the first things I would like to do is to have my body as an executive body sit down with the secretariat workers and have a heart-to-heart. These are the things that we must fix. We must.
Well, let me, in saying that though, what about the insularity that I would have mentioned? The fact that we tend to give jobs to persons in and around football whom we're most familiar with. I didn't get you directly address that. That's me,
this Don Grant. And I'm going to tell you this. Over the past few years, I've watched into the various communities or players or executive members for the various clubs. And I've searched myself and said, where could we fit our people? I've heard that talk. Most of the workers are from this specific community. That we'll have to fix, because at the end of the day, the Football Association is opening its technical center. We have to build it out. And we must be able to empower persons from around the communities in St. Kitts and Nevis to work at the facility. And I would like to see persons from every avenue of our clubs, because they say pass and christen their children first. If we're going to bring in persons, we're going to have to explore persons from all the clubs. For example, the coaching staff. I would like to see coaches working with the Football Association in that technical center from each one of the clubs, because at the end of the day, what are they doing? They are empowering themselves to go back out to their communities. At the office, we need different persons, supplement other persons. I would like to search our clubs first. Mine, I don't want persons to leave their jobs. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you this. I'll give you an insight. Right now, the person as the general secretary is Stanley Jacobs. I can't let go Mr. Stanley Jacobs right off the bat to say, I don't want to do. How do we get continuation? I would also like to empower somebody else to maybe, just like the TDs, to fill that role in the future. I would like to hire someone to work with him. And the person I'm thinking about is from another club, maybe from the sister island. Because
go ahead, finish up your point.
We must understand though, we need to choose the best person, not our friends. And that is where I will end it. The best persons for the job, not our friends.
That's what I wanted to get to in terms of that particular question. And lastly, it's such an important point. The touch on the Ventos feedback and the situation, because those type of situations, one, are frowned upon by FIFA. In fact, in the past, it's cost us bans and stuff like that, even if not us, other countries bans and going, different kinds of issues with FIFA. Two, it doesn't augur well for the sport when you have those type of conflicts such as the one where Connery would have taken the FA to court over what they thought was a violation of their rights. How do you, Don Grant, plan to work around those type issues? You did started off by mentioning tightening the statutes. What are the ideas? How is your approach going to help?
Okay. I prefix that with what Mr. Ventus said to me in the court. But I didn't have to go to the court for Mr. Ventus to say that to me. Because I could tell you this, if we had acted sooner, we would have never been in the court. And that's an indictment to all of us as an executive. All right? I think that because of the protracted times and maybe the almost like standoff approach that both club and maybe the FA seem to have, that posture, it led to that point where at the end of the day, somebody was saying, I'm going to prove a point to you. Now, we were also fearful though, because in our statutes from FIFA, it says you should not enter the court with a club. But at the end of the day, I learned from it, because Mr. President Johnson always said to me as the competition committee chair, natural justice must be part of what we deal with. And Eddie Ventus said that to me. Are you telling me that the court have no right to settle a matter like this on a given day? Are you infringing the club or a player's natural justice to fairness? And believe me, I'm not a lawyer, but I had to sit back and read the rules and regulations, because Mr. Johnson is learned. And even before I reached to Mr. Ventus, Mr. Johnson was the one who said natural justice must be part of what we're going to do. No, FIFA didn't really act in terms of saying, hey, you guys are in court, we're going to expel you. Thank you. They didn't. But I don't want us, because of any misconception or tardy behavior in the future, to end up
find yourselves
in that situation again.
I agree. All right, Don, this conversation has been a lot more edifying. It's been a lot more purposeful. It's been a lot more entertaining. And I'm certain persons who did not know a bit of your approach or anything about your approach or who you are, what you represent, and what you've done for football in St. Kitts and Nevis, then I am hoping that they would have gotten the opportunity to hear from the man himself. So thank you for being here again. I'm certain that it will probably not be our last time together. Maybe there are some specific issues that our listening public may want to raise, and if so, I will try and make some contact with you. And I know you're always open to meet and have a discussion as long as it's everything football.
Anytime, sir. Anytime.
No problem. Thank you for being here again. Thank you to the listening public for joining in this discussion with us. Thank you for being entertained by the bench meeting. As we said, we're going into lockdown. So everyone, be safe.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Be safe. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Stay off the roads because
Adhere.
adhere to the legal system, because a certain this time around you can think you can touch a piece of jail if not. So, but that should not be our motivation. Just adhere, and let's see if we can get this thing out of the federations.
Yes. I would like to end on that note too. Quickly before we go, we have players who have moved on to Portugal. We have Jelani Archibald, who is in Malta. We have Mr. Freeman, who is in Portugal. We have other players who are outside there, including females, persons who are heading off to college and on trials. I want to say to them, the federation will always be there. The SKNFA, once we're empowered, FIFA said something to us in 2010 at its Congress. You do, and we will do. We will always help to empower you. Thanks.
That's a good note, Don. Thank you very much. Thanks again. And
Thanks.
Thank everyone for being here on the bench meeting. So you have a pleasant afternoon, one and all.
For real and unbiased sports news and reviews, from cricket to football